No, I fully agree. I kind of make an analogy sometimes to families about auto insurance. Nobody thinks they're going to get into an accident, but you still have auto insurance. Taking out, the obvious caveat that it's required to drive a vehicle, you have auto insurance, even though the odds of getting into an auto accident are very minimal for most people, but we still have it. That's the same with having your wishes documented and having this paperwork taken in place. The odds of something happening prematurely are minimal, but it's still there in the event that something does happen, and you're just protecting yourself. And I also, really stress to families, it isn't just about living and dying, right? When you get these wishes created, and I always recommend, going to an attorney that specializes in like elder care law or family law, that knows the options available and the verbiage, because, there's something about, artificial nutrition. Some people don't want to have a feeding tube indefinitely to survive or live on, but there are situations where either, being put on a respirator or having, artificial tube feeding, you can say, yes, I would like that. In the event my doctors agree that there's a higher probability of me no longer requiring it after a certain amount of time. But if they feel it would be required indefinitely, I don't want it. So, these are like tools and, support services that could help you in the interim for a short period of time, but it doesn't mean you're going to need it or require it indefinitely. And I think that's a big difference that families don't typically understand or know. They think it's an all or nothing kind of situation. There's a family we had helped not too long ago, and the person was on a ventilator, and the ventilator was only needed for, I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks. It wasn't something that was going to be required long term. And in his wishes, he did have it documented that he would be acceptable to artificial ventilation if it was a short-term solution for a long-term fix. And that was wonderful. But I look at it like, if that person had thought it was all or nothing and they put, no, I don't want a ventilator, then this person probably would not have lived. And since he did know better, or his attorney, I'm assuming, said you can have it as a short-term solution, and he chose to have that option available, he was, I don't want to say cured, but he improved to the point where he's now off it. He's eating, drinking, talking, and breathing on his own. So, I mean, these are big decisions, but they're not complicated if you have the right person supporting you while you're making them.
Well, and bottom line is we don't know what all those options are,
Right.
and so it's important to be able to talk through that. There is an organization called Compassion and Choices. And one of the things that I like that they've done is they have what's it called? Dementia Values and Priorities tab. And it's a tool that says, if I have this, this, and this, what level of care do I want? How bad do I still want to live? And then there's like 5 different choices. And then it's like, if I have this mixture, and because a lot of times we're looking at one-offs, and the one-offs don't really matter. But if you stick them all together, like now I can't speak and I'm bedridden and I don't have control over my bodily functions, and I can't communicate, that might make a difference versus I'm just incontinent or I'm just bedridden. And I don't want to say just, as it's minimal, but those types of things are really important to consider. And I liked how they kind of packaged that.
Right.
And the other thing to remember is this can be changed. You can get these forms free, and you can do them yourself, or you can go through a guided process. Maybe do that the first time if you want to, if you don't want to, spend the money to do it again. But then you would kind of know at least what some of those options are. There's lots of videos and books out there and organizations that can kind of help you with that as well. But I think the more we get the public conversation going, the better off we are. I did a couple of these with family members, and the husband said, "Oh, yeah, I can do that. Oh no, she's not going to be able to do that. She's got dementia." And I said, "Well, I think we should try." I had a much better conversation, a way more in-depth conversation with her
Yeah.
than I did him.
Yeah.
because he was afraid to talk about it.
Right.
And she really knew, she had given it some thought, and it was really important. And she was so thankful that somebody talked to her about these things. And so I think sometimes our prejudgment comes in of who's capable to have these conversations or not. And even if you just get tidbits of what people's wishes are, I think is important, because when it comes time for someone to pass, you're sitting down, or even before, when you're in the hospital trying to make these decisions. And then once they pass, it's like, do they want to be cremated? Do they want a celebration of life? Do they want an obit in the paper? I mean, those are things we don't talk about, but they're big decisions when you're honoring somebody's life.
Right.
And it gives you an opportunity to even write part of your own obit if you want to. You can state who you want to be notified or in attendance, or who you don't. Because some families and some relationships, aren't the best, and it's like, no, I don't want that person,
Yeah.
at my service. So there's all kinds of little pieces that are involved in that I think are important conversations. And then typically when one person is filling these out, there's a conversation. And if you do it as a group, I think you're just all going to gain so much knowledge, because we all have different questions and different opinions. And we might have it in our mind that, no, I don't want that. And then after hearing why somebody else wants it, it's like, oh, that really does make sense. I never looked at it like that. So and I haven't seen this. I don't know if you have, but have you seen where people do like any like group classes on this, where the conversations kind of come out from the group?
I know. Well, not. I haven't seen it per se like that, but I have seen where some of our colleges around here and even hospitals, they will have like, long-term care planning meeting or conferences, seminars, where they are talking about, what to expect, what documents you'll need, the importance and what this means and what that means. Because, the hospital, and like even with our staff, we tell the families, we'll say one of the first questions we say, is your loved one a DNR? Do not resuscitate. And they'll say, I think so. Yeah, probably. And we say, well, there's not a yes, think so. You will actually have a document saying they are a DNR. I said, because without that document, if there's an emergency when our staff is in the home or they go to the hospital, CPR is being administered, or all advanced life support is being, executed, because that's a responsibility and duty of the healthcare profession. But if you have it documented, then they're going to make sure that those wishes are enforced. So we always tell the families, we need a copy of your POA paperwork, your advance directives or living will, and we keep it right in the binders for our staff, and we keep a copy here at the office. Because, we have families, Lori, we're with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there are no other family members around. And so, the onus is now on us to make sure that these wishes are enforced and respected.